Hi, we got the patch notes for 9.14. I think along with everyone else that plays Teamfight Tactics has been more excited for this patch than any other patch that we can remember other than the last one, because that one brought us Teamfight Tactics. But Ranked is going live on this patch, so this patch is incredibly important. I feel like everyone that plays this game and makes YouTube videos is going to make a video where they scroll through all the changes and read them one by one. I'm going to do it a little bit differently, a little bit non-linearly through the patch notes, because I want to go by classes and origins and builds that I think are important, rather than just going one by one, because I think it'll give people a better idea of the holistic changes that are happening to the different builds in Teamfight Tactics. So first one that I'm going to start with is pirates, and this is probably the biggest change with Twisted Fate coming out. So for those of you who didn't play Twisted Fate, he is a pirate sorcerer, and before TF I would say that in Teamfight Tactics, except for a few champions, everyone is either backline DPS or they're a frontline unit, other than a few units that I would call supports. So the supports currently, there's Lulu, who can knock up and give kind of a shield to your allies. There's Kindred and Kale, and all three of those are really, really powerful. Lulu's, I think, one of the best units below 4 costs in the game. TF is kind of a support character also. So the way that he works is he can throw one of 3 cards at random, so a stun and AoE damage, or then this is the important one, giving mana back to himself and everyone else around him. When he hits blue card, it is incredible. So just everyone on your team either ults immediately or they get like really, really close to ulting. So 1 out of 3 of his cards, just your team goes nuts all at once. It's so good. And it even gives mana back to himself, so then he throws another card almost immediately. TF is not a high DPS unit, but that supportive ability, especially in late game, because usually pirates you think of as like something that you're only going to be doing early, other than like Pike and then Misfortune, who gives a shit about her origin. But when you have like 7, 8, 9 units on the board and you can restore mana to all of them at once, that is so huge. And TF is going to be something that you're going to want to pick up, and you're going to want to 2-star in whenever you're doing a pirates opening. Obviously, he's a lot easier to get because he's 2 costs instead of 3 costs than Gangplank, as well as just a lot more effective in combat than Gangplank. But Gangplank also got buffed. We'll get to that. So the reason I wanted to go over TF first is that if you scroll down to where it talks about pirates, so for the traits, the average gold per chest for pirates is dropping from 2 gold to 1.6 gold. I think that this is completely reasonable because pirates, you can get them online so much earlier, and also just because of the additional unit that you can play with pirates that's actually good, and the GP buffs, you're going to just be winning a lot more rounds. And so, yeah, you lose 0.4 gold per chest, but every round that you win is another gold that you get. Plus, you can go on win streak. Plus, what this lets you do, the additional combat effectiveness of pirates, is it lets you econ better. And something that I've been trying to get across, haven't made a video just about econ because I can't really get my thoughts together. But basically, it's like your HP is so important to econing, because if you're at 30 HP or 10 HP, you pretty much have to spend all your money and go all in and try to get 2 stars of everything you have out. If you're at 60, 70, 80 HP, you don't have to do that. You can stay at 50 until, whenever you want, maybe, spend a little bit to keep a win streak going if you have a win streak, but you're just under no pressure to spend your money, and that lets you roll over more and more and more interest. So the fact that pirates have more combat effectiveness is so important to just what they want to do in terms of econing. So next for pirates, because TF is a sorcerer pirate, what it does for them is it gives you an additional transition that is possible out of pirates without something that replaces your whole team. I made a video about like doing really sharp transitions. And one that was possible before is doing a really sharp transition where you just sell all your pirates and replace them with some other composition, in a lot of cases sorcerers. You had to do that pretty early so that you didn't lose all your HP while fighting with pirates. But now, because TF is both a good combat unit and he's a sorcerer, this gives you a really easy transition from pirates into sorcerers. So what you can do is you just keep your pike and your TF from pirates, and then you put in 2 more sorcerers, for example, Cassidon, Lulu, and then you have 3 very, very strong sorcerers early, and then you can go, if you want, into 6 sorcerer from there. You can also do 3 sorcerer while also still maintaining 3 pirates. For example, if you have a 2-star Graves as a frontliner, you can do that. However, there were a couple more changes to pirates that I should cover here. So the first thing is in tier 1, Graves' health got nerfed. Basically what this does is sharpen his identity as someone that he's a frontline DPS unit. And if you position him properly, which is usually going to be putting him in the very front corner, Scar had a video where he mentioned this and I think it's very helpful. If you put him there, he's going to stand there and hit 2 or more units at a time. You put an early IE on or something on him, he's just going to like blow up a team. But he was never the frontliner that was the beefiest, and this makes him even less beefy, but I think it's a reasonable compromise for how much better pirates get with TF. The other one that they changed is Pike. Pike, I expected to get a really big nerf this patch. Like, I expected people to be so pissed off at Pike that he would get nerfed again. So yeah, they made his mana cost 125, but his first ult comes out at the same time anyway. So he only needs 50 mana before his first ult, which I think is crazy. The reason that they did this is everyone was doing Shojin or double Shojin Pike. So this makes him, gives him a little bit more time between ults, because currently on live, it's just ridiculous. Like, he's just sliding back and forth across the map over and over, just back and forth, stunning the entire team. So you have a little bit more time to focus down a Pike if he's CCing your entire team. However, Pike is still an incredibly strong unit. I don't think this changes that. Just gives him a little bit more vulnerability. So what do I think of pirates overall? Pirates are extremely strong. I think that if you have the units for it, definitely a pirate opening is going to be one of the best in the game, especially because you don't have to necessarily win every round to win with a pirate opening, right? You can not do quite as well as, like, say a sick noble opening that, you know, wins every round, but you have a good chance of going on a win streak, and you're going to keep your HP up a lot more. And, you know, even if it's only 1.6 gold a round, that's the equivalent of having between 1 and 2 extra interests, so 10 and 20 extra gold, which is really difficult to do. So I think this is one of the strongest openings in the game now. And it will be unless they nerf TF and Graves in the next patch. So moving on from pirates, we are going to transition, as pirates often does, into gunslingers. So pirate gunslinger is the only origin class overlapped in the game that shares 3 units. So it has Graves, Gangplank, and Misfortune are all gunslinger pirates. So before, the only transition that you really could do was pirates into gunslingers. That's still going to happen pretty often now. For those of you who didn't play PvE, gunslingers were absolutely ridiculous on PvE, and this contains a big nerf to them from that. If you're only familiar with the live patch, you're probably thinking, wait, don't gunslingers suck ass? Why would you need to nerf gunslingers? And the reason is that Gunslinger was completely bugged. It kind of downplays like how bad it was bugged here. So it says, improve visualization of Gunslinger AoE attacks, fix some bugs where Gunslinger extra attacks could fail to fire at high attack speeds, and then extra units hit from all to 2 at Gunslinger 4. Gunslinger 4 did not work on live. It doesn't work. If you have Gunslinger 4 in any amount of attack speed, your units will just stand there like stuttering and like basically canceling their autos over and over and over, and they won't do anything. The way that they fix this going into the next patch is improve visualization. Basically, you get a hurricane bolt instead of the current where like you do multiple autos. It just looks like these extra bolts, so it doesn't use up the unit's time autoing. That probably means that they didn't actually fix the underlying bug with attack speed in teamfight tactics, but they kind of made a workaround with this bolt. But it's not just like the current hurricane where it's just damage. The gunslinger bolt, it applies on hit effects because it is a full auto for the case of everything other than triggering more gunslinger procs, obviously. And on PvE, where it was hitting all units with the bug fix, it was nuts. Like, there was practically no other build you could do because Gunslinger was that oppressive. And what you do with this is you combine it with every on-hit item that you can get. Really important thing for Gunslinger, in addition to fixing this bug, is that they fixed Curse Blade, or as I call it, Shrink Ray. So on live, Shrink Ray, when it hits someone, it's bugged so that it'll like restore their HP, and it's kind of ambiguous when it's actually shrunk someone. But on PvE and in this upcoming patch, you'll see like their actual star rating, like you'll see an icon for a decrease, and there's a new icon for a 0-star unit. And reducing someone's stats like that is really powerful. The question that I have for Gunslingers is, now that they're only hitting 2 extra units, is that good enough? I think that this is going to be a build that isn't oppressive, where you can just hit everyone on the map with every CC ability and just disable their entire team. But hitting 3 people per auto, or 50% chance to hit 3 people per auto, is still really powerful. So the way that you do this, it still needs a lot of bows. I think that anyone that's made Gunslinger is familiar with how many bows it needs. So you just get a 3-star Tristana, or a 2-star Lucian, maybe a 3-star Lucian, and you put RFC and Shrink Ray and Swordbreaker. Swordbreaker is incredible, by the way, really, really underrated item. Or red buff on Graves is also really great Gunslinger item. And so you have one unit that basically just stands in the back and CCs their entire team. So with bullets, you can CC people even while outputting a lot of DPS. And then you have another Gunslinger who is like your DPS unit. So say that you have a level 3 Tristana, Gunslinger, because they are real autos and they apply on hits, what you can do is you can have like Tristana with RFC Titanic or double Titanic or something like that. And when you are attacking like 3 units per auto attack or every other auto attack, and all of those do splash damage, and level 3 Tristana has like 2k HP, so each of those are doing 200 extra damage on hit on an AoE. That's crazy. What's different about Gunslingers compared to other builds is how all in they go early. So other builds that are currently really good, like Ninja Elementalists, like Sorcerers, Protect the DRAVEN, these are builds that you're going to want to econ really hard and not spend any gold and not reroll early. And you don't live off of 3-star units, like early 3-star units. What you get are 2-star really good units, like 2-star versions of 4-cost units. Whereas Gunslingers is going to be a build where you are really relying on getting 3-star Tristana, 3-star Lucian. So the econ for Gunslingers is really different. What this is also going to do, though, this is going to put a lot of pressure on econing players, because Gunslingers comes online really, really early. So Gunslinger, you only need 4 units for it, right? So all you need is Graves Tristana, common units, Lucian, 2-cost unit, and GP, 3-cost unit. So you could theoretically have this at level 4, and then at level 4 or 5, you spend all your money re-rolling after Krugs, and you get 3-star Tristana with Titanic. You're going to rip everyone apart. You are very likely to go on like a 10-round winning streak if you get Gunslinger for Tristana level 3 with a Titanic. It's just going to rip through everyone. This gets even better when you see in the tier 2 units that Lucian was actually buffed this patch. This is a huge buff to, it doesn't seem like a lot because it's just second shot damage, so this is his magic damage that he's doing, not his AD. But early when you are just using like 1-star Lucian to trigger Gunslinger or to trigger Noble, he's going to be outputting a lot more DPS. So 85 damage per shot, and that happens pretty often because he has a really small mana pool, so he's dashing pretty often. And if you're dashing, you know, 5 times per fight and 85 extra damage per shot, you're outputting a lot more damage than you are currently. So this is a huge buff both to Gunslinger and to Nobles, but we'll get to Nobles later. So where am I on Gunslinger overall? I was coming into this saying that Gunslinger would be the best build in 9.14, but I was surprised to see this nerf where it only hits 2. So I no longer think it'll be absolutely the best build. I think it'll be one of them. The issue still is that it is very item dependent. So I think when you go into Gunslinger, it'll be very strong for you. However, you can only go into Gunslinger when you have RFC and maybe 1 or 2 extra bows. If you try to go into Gunslinger with no bows, you will lose. Your team will just be terrible. You will run into someone with Phantom Dancer or someone that has a few Yordles on their team. You'll miss everything. You just won't attack enough. Your units aren't going to have the range because they're not going to have RFC. It's just going to be terrible. It's super item dependent. However, if you do get a couple early bows and you see some Gunslingers, absolutely move in onto that build. I think it'll be really strong for you. So the other thing that you can transition out of Pirates other than Gunslingers into Sorcerers is Sorcerers. So let's talk about Sorcerers. So I think that everyone is familiar with on live how shield stacking. Fuck, what's that item called? The one that makes the fucking shield. Locket of the Iron Slary. Locket stacking, of course. Locket stacking is the strongest. So the biggest change to Sorcerers this patch, one of the 2 biggest changes, I should say, one of the 2 biggest changes is that items no longer scale off AP. This is huge. So let me find where it is in here. Items no longer benefit from ability power. So what they were going to do was just make like certain items no longer scale. So like Locket didn't scale, but like some other ones would. Now just straight up nothing scale, no items scale off AP anymore. Enormous nerf to Sorcerers, because before there were so many things that you could do, like Morellonomicon that would scale, like Ionic Spark that would scale, and just none of that anymore. However, the other big change to Sorcerers is that they have another unit now. So there are 8 Sorcerers in the game. You only need 6 for the plus 100% AP. This means that theoretically you could get a 6 Sorcerer composition without having any level 4 units. So you don't necessarily need the Aurelian Soul or Karthus anymore to trigger that. So you could have 6 sub level 4 Sorcerers, and then for your 7th unit at level 7 you have Akali, for example, to double her magic damage. I think this is going to be an extremely strong build. Sorcerers, despite the fact that Locket stacking no longer works, I think they're still going to be a top tier build, and they're just so much easier to transition into now. I made that build about, that video about sharp transitions, and it was taking Sorcerers as the example. Sorcerers are so much easier to transition into now that I don't think that you will almost ever need to do that sharp of a transition anymore, because you can just open Pirates and then make a ton of money, win some rounds, save your HP, and you can use all that money to find your Sorcerers and to level up, get a fast level 7, maybe even level 8, and level 2 or 3 your Lulu, and this just makes it so much stronger. The other thing that I'm surprised about with Sorcerers is if I go down to the tier 2 changes here, we go straight from Lucian to Pike. If you're not following what I'm saying, Lulu escaped getting nerfed. I am surprised by this. I think that this is because ranked isn't live. And what I mean by that is that I don't think that people have figured out how broken Lulu is. I feel like I'm alone on this. I feel like I'm a crazy person yelling into the void. Lulu is broken. Lulu is just broken. For those of you who haven't played Six Sorcerers or haven't delved into the tooltips of Lulu, when you level up Lulu to 2 and 3 star, she gains additional targets for her knockup. So level 3 Lulu targets 3 of her allies and knocks up everyone around them and gives a shitload of HP. And because Six Sorcerer gives plus 100% AP, Lulu scales off of that AP. The amount of health that you give scales off AP. So you can knock someone up and give literally thousands of extra health for them for several extra seconds. It's ridiculous. So you can stack AP on her. I really think that people were sleeping on the real reason that locket stacking was broken. Like, obviously the lockets were the part that people focused on there, this huge shield that appears at the beginning of the battle. But I did a lot of Six Sorcerer builds just to test how it would be post changes. I did a lot of builds where I didn't use any lockets at all. I played in tournaments where you weren't allowed to locket stack. And what I did is I just built up Lulu. I built 1 mana item and death cap on Lulu, and it's still ridiculous. So I think that sorcerers, just once people start respecting Lulu more, people will realize that it wasn't a locket stacking gimmick. Six Sorcerers are just inherently a problem. Yes, the change to items does nerf them a little bit, but I think that you can really play around this. In addition to those, there were 2 other changes to sorcerers here. So Morgana. Morgana is already really good. Morgana is extremely strong on live in 9.13, and they buffed her damage. So Morgana is a misleading champion in that she's a ranged champion, but she's a frontliner. She has a ton of HP. She has as much HP as a lot of melee units. And what you do is you put her front, like on the edge of your bunch of units, but in the back, so that assassins, when they jump on your squad, they come straight to Morgana. And Morgana has a lot of HP, and she has an ability that automatically targets every unit, every enemy unit that's in range of her. And they buffed her damage even more. So keep in mind also that Morgana, it does all this damage twice. So it does the damage first when it locks onto them, and then a few seconds, similar to Morgalt in League, and then it does damage again, and that's when it stuns them. So that's not 50 extra damage you're seeing from level 1 Morgana, that is 100 extra damage that you're seeing from level 1 Morgana because it does it twice. There's also a change here. A few units got this change. I don't think it's the most relevant for Morgana, but we'll get to that, I promise. The other one here is, this is the funniest looking change note. Damage to lower star champions, 9999 damage to 19999 damage. So clearly it's the biggest damage buff in the game, right? They gave a unit an extra 10,000 damage. Oh my god, that's broken. So the reason for that is that if he targeted a lower star Cho'Gath with Dragon's Claw, Cho'Gath could survive it. Or maybe like if you stack Dragon's Claw, you could actually survive Veigar ult. So that's just a change for that. And this is a very slight buff to Veigar. It's a little bit. Veigar is like a sorcerer that's okay. You know, if you get him to 3-star, obviously he's just ridiculous. You stack mana on him, he's just gonna like pow, 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 just like machine gun chain your entire team down. But it takes a lot to get him to 3-star, of course, because he's a 3-cost unit. So minor buff to sorcerer, but the main thing here is the fact that they didn't nerf Lulu, and one other champion that they didn't nerf is Akali. And Akali's not a sorcerer, but she is magic damage. And while they did take away the item scaling, they didn't take away the fact that sorcerers still give extra magic extra spell power, spell damage, however you want to call it, to your entire team, even if they're not sorcerers. If sorcerers continue to be dominant, something that I expect to see in a future patch is sorcerers changing to only affecting damage from sorcerers. So along with pirates, I expect sorcerers to be one of the best builds in 9.14. If someone came from the future and told me sorcerers are actually the best build in 9.14, I would not be that surprised. But top 3 build for sure for sorcerers still, even without Locket. Promise is still good. Next up, along with gunslingers, I'd say that the biggest change to any class in this one would be to demons. So when you scroll down here, the first thing that you see about demons is mana burn chance, other than at 6 demons took a nerf. So 40% to 25, 60 to 50. You might be thinking, why are demons good now if they got their mana burn chance nerfed? And this is why I wanted to go like class by class or origin by origin instead of just reading linearly. The biggest change to this patch, along with the introduction of TF, is that Elise now costs 1. You have a demon that costs 1. You have now a second shapeshifter that costs 1. So she is not quite as powerful as a 2-cost unit, of course, but that kind of makes sense. But she is still a ranged unit that transforms into melee. They nerfed her a little bit. What's relevant here is she still makes the same number of spiders if you 3-star her. Excuse me. So something that I expect a lot of demon players to do is to reroll post Krugs to get level 3 Elise. And the reason that this is so important is not only are you going to have a really powerful team to beat people with, but you are going to get people's HP so low. For those of you who don't know this interaction, when you beat someone and you have spiderlings out, you deal extra damage for those spiderlings. And unless this is changed, I believe that the damage that each of those spiderlings deal is equal to the star level of Elise. So for example, if you have 2 spiderlings from level 2 Elise and you beat someone, they are going to take not only the damage from Elise, but 4 extra damage from those spiderlings. If you eat it to 4 spiderlings at level 3, then that's 12 damage. And you can get so much pressure put on you, you're gonna think that you're going to 40 HP and you're fine and you can econ, and you're actually at 30. And that's a big change because it means that you actually have to spend your gold or else you might lose. Compared to PBE, this isn't the same. I believe on PBE she still made 2 spiders at 1 star, but I could be wrong. But the bigger change here is that she is a 1-cost demon and with a ranged ability. However, Elise does not attack very fast. So for triggering your demons, you are still not going to be very reliant on Elise autos. However, there is this where now spiderlings now benefit from the demon origin effect. What this means is that when you surround a unit with spiders, you're going to burn through all their mana. Demons, I think, with this change, and I'll show you some other changes here. If I go up to tier 3, Evelyn, big buff. Aatrox, big buff. And the net effect of all this is that demons are now a real counter to mana-heavy spell cost compositions. They're especially a really good counter to compositions that are very reliant on a frontline unit getting their ults off. So I'm talking Gnar, Cho'Gath, Sejuani. These frontline units where it's like, okay, I'm Glacial. If my Sejuani just casts 1 ult this fight, I will stomp everyone because she'll freeze their entire team. My Vayne and Ashe from the backline can go pew pew pew. Your team just can't do anything for basically the rest of the round. Demons fuck that really hard because your Sedge will never get an ult off, your Braum will never shield, and then once you chew through those front lines, because they don't just take your mana, they deal you damage for that. So they're going to chew through those Sejuanis, those Cho'Gaths really fast. The other thing, the reason that I want to highlight this, Aatrox. I played with and against Aatrox quite a bit on PBE. Holy shit, Aatrox hits like a truck. I was blown away at how much damage Aatrox ability does, and especially now that it only costs 75 mana. If you even level 1 Aatrox, it's an AoE ability from a frontliner that deals 400 damage. That is so much fucking damage. I can't even describe how much Aatrox does if he gets one ability off. Aatrox goes from a unit that no one wanted before to, I think, one of the better 3 costs in the game almost immediately with the viability of demons and this buff. Evelyn I'm still not sure about. I'm of 2 minds here. So when I look at this buff, these are really strong buffs. Like in 4 different ways. Yeah, she can go up and one-shot your whole team. The issue with Evelyn is that her ability just inherently just really sucks. Because she's a melee champion, right? So she walks up to your team, she gets her mana, she uses it, and then she's halfway across the map and like walks up to them again. And if you have a bunch of other melee units, then she's gonna like kind of wander around trying to get in. My first reaction to this is that she's still going to be good, even with the annoying part of how her ult works, just because her numbers are really high now. Like an Execute threshold where, I'm just going to assume that you have level 2s of these units. So if your unit has 2/3 of its HP left, she's going to deal 500% damage to it. So basically if your unit has 2/3 HP, it's poof, it's gone. It's gone. And because you have like Varus or whatever, you know, pew-pewing the backline, you can probably one-shot some teams with that. So I'm not sure. I think that Evelyn is probably going to be good now. Demons to me, overall, I think that they are, along with gunslingers, they are the biggest open question of 914. What I mean by open question is that I haven't seen anyone really convince me of this is the build to do for demons. I've been convinced that, for example, ninja elementalists, this is the build to do for ninjas. For sorcerers, 6 sorcerer, 1 extra, I'm convinced that is the build to do for sorcerer. I think that there are a lot of different builds that look good on paper for demons, and I'm not really sure which of them is going to be good. For example, you could do 4 or 6 demons shapeshifter, with Elise being a shapeshifter, Swain being a shapeshifter. So then you have 6 demons, and you add in Gnar as your 3rd shapeshifter. Everyone gets the bonus. You mana burn everyone. You have a really powerful unit in Gnar. Is that going to be the best, or do you add DRAVEN for the Imperial? Do you take advantage of how you burn through mana and you want to amp up that burn with Sorcerer? Take advantage of how Morgana is a Sorcerer and then add 2 more Sorcerers, maybe turn someone into a Sorcerer with Yuumi. Do you go Demon Rangers and then take advantage of Varus's ability to shoot really fast from the back line and burn through everyone's mana? What was the other one? I was even trying Demon Gunslingers on PBE, which obviously does require, the item is called a Darken, where you get Spatula Tier and it turns someone into a demon. There are so many creative things that you can do with Darken, where you make a 6th demon, probably to replace Evelyn, but you know, to replace anyone. This is a build that I know it's powerful. I just don't know how to do it yet. If you put me in a ranked game right now, pretending that this is going live, I would not know exactly where to go with demons, but I'm really excited to try. When this goes live, if you want to be kind of the vanguard of discovering like the next broken build in teamfight tactics in 914, I would start with demon. I really would. I would play around. I would do a different demon build every time. I think that there really is something broken here, especially with how much damage Elise can do to players, especially with how good Aatrox is, especially with how you can burn through the mana of caster compositions. There is something here. I just don't know exactly what it is yet. But for the patch notes, purposes of patch notes, demons are real. There is a real demon build. Okay, let's go on to ninjas. Ninjas are fucking broken right now. I think that this is a difference between like people that are just like playing casually, not casually, but ranked isn't live yet, right? So we don't know what's challenger, you know, in teamfight tactics yet. But pretty much every really good player is doing ninja elementalist. I've seen Dog doing this build. I've seen people either making reference to this build. Skara made reference offhand to how good demon elementalist was in a different video that I saw. People are making some really good guides that you should check out about how to make demon ninja elementalist. And so when I think about 913 and I think about the carries that you want for your backline, in my last video I said that there was a big 4 of carries. There was DRAVEN, Brand, Akali, and Aurelion Sol. Aurelion Sol, I already went over sorcerers, but Sol took a nerf with how lockets, you can't scale off lockets anymore. Brand got a slight nerf this patch. DRAVEN got nerfed this patch. How the living fuck did Akali not get nerfed? Akali is fucking stupid right now. Akali is legitimately broken. You don't even need damage items on her. I'm serious. You either give her sorcerer bonus or assassin bonus. You give her some tank items. You give her Dragon's Claw and Phantom Dancer, and she goes into their backline full tank and one-shot someone. It's dumb. And now I look at the patch notes, and what the fuck do I see for Akali? Okay, what do we need from Akali? We need to fix bugs that make her sometimes not deal damage. And this one, okay, maybe I'm misreading this and I'm just making a big deal of something. So no longer cast her ability at times when no enemies would be in range at start of cast. If I'm interpreting this correctly, and please someone correct me if I'm wrong, currently on 913, what happens if you give her Seraphs? That is, you give her 2-tier items. Before she jumps as an assassin, she immediately casts her ult at no one and then jumps, and she has no mana. She autos a couple times, and then she she autos once, which is enough mana to cast her ult again. If I'm interpreting this correctly, if you build Seraphs on Akali as of 914, but she won't ult immediately because there's no targets at range, so she'll jump first, and before anyone has any ability to respond to her, she will jump immediately cast her ult, which has a cone range of the hex in front of her and then the 2 hexes beyond that. If you have 2-star Akali with that item and maybe 1 damage item, not even need that, she could, in the first second of a fight, one-shot 3 units. I don't think I'm exaggerating here. This is broken. Unless this interaction is different than how I'm picturing in my head, this is actually broken. Beyond Akali, if we go to, for ninjas, for 3-star, 3-cost units, Kennen got buffed. I think that this is one of the most surprising things in the patch. Kennen's really fucking good, especially because Ninja Elementalist literally revolves around Kennen because he is a ninja and an elementalist. Kennen deals a lot of AoE damage. He has CC. He is 2 types that are amazing and 1 type that is sometimes relevant in Yordle. Like, the other 3-cost 3-type unit in Gangplank is garbage because he's 3-cost. So how does Kennen get away with having 3 types and being that good currently and being a part of the best build, and he gets buffed? I feel like I'm really missing something here. And it's not just that. So when we go to 2-cost, Shen he starts with 100 mana now. And Shen, currently in Ninja Elementalist, you have your units that are like, this is an amazing unit, I want to run this just because of unit power, even if there was no synergy. So Akali, Brand, obviously. Pike is part of that composition, amazing unit. Ken and I already think is really good. Zed is a pretty good unit. And then your two that are like, well, I need to run it, are Lysandra and Shen. And then Lysandra even gets replaced by Anivia late game, who is on her own an amazing unit. So then the only two that are left over where you're like, whatever, are Zed and Shen. And even Zed actually is really relevant because the rest of your team does nothing but magic damage. And Zed, you really need to be in there to auto some people and crit them with physical damage. I guess, you know, Akali also will auto for physical damage, but she's mostly going to be spending her time casting. The fact that they made probably your worst unit in Ninja Elementalist significantly better is so huge, and I'm really confused about this. So what happens with Shen, and I think that anyone that's played with Shen has seen this, is he walks up, he gets a bunch of hits, he does a couple autos, he starts channeling his ult, and he dies in the middle of channeling his ult. This is a trait that he shares in common with Darius, Mordekaiser, Misfortune, Karthus, and Volibear, where regardless of the channel time of their ult, they're going to get interrupted and die during that channel time. It always happens. They always die during that channel. And the fact that Shen now starts at such high mana that he can protect your team, and this also means that he protects your brand super well. So this, I think, in Ninja Elementalist, more than negates the fact that that brand got a nerf. Let's go straight from here into Elementalist, because I've been talking about Ninja Elementalist as a build so much. So Brand, one of the best carries in the game. When I was in a tournament in the final 2 rounds, the first one 4 of us were doing Brand, and the second 5 of us were doing Brand out of 8 people. And what's the big ol' nerf that we need to give him? 25 more mana. This has to be the happiest patch I've ever seen, in that everything gets a buff. Everything gets a buff. Almost nothing gets a nerf. There are like 4 units that got nerfed this patch, and everything else gets buffed. So even though Brand got a nerf, in Ninja Elementalist, you're still overall ahead. And the reason for that is that with Shen now starting with 50 more mana, he's going to make your Brand dodge more autos, because the way that Shen works is that his field moves with him. So when the enemy team assassins all jump on Brand, Shen is gonna buy you more time by having you dodge all autos in that range. So then Brand can still get his ult off, even if it comes out a little faster, because Shen can protect him so much earlier. The other big change to Elementalist, and this one is pretty relevant, this is the only reason that maybe Ninja Elementalist might not be as busted, is traits. Elementalist Daisy now has, oh wow, 500 less health from 3,000. She had 3,000 fucking health. Daisy had 3,000 health to 2,500. Who gives a shit about the AD that it has? I mean, it is really, really funny when Daisy is your last unit alive and you see her like 1v1ing their Karthus or whatever, and their Karthus just channels, and you find out that Karthus channel does not deal damage to summons. So Daisy just 1v1s the fucker and just pounds that idiot nerd spellcaster into the ground, and you win the round based on that. So like, I mean, a nerf is a nerf. Like, even if it's something that like, oh, that's not, you know, why you run Daisy, you know, it's still a little bit relevant, right? Like, you're dealing a little bit less damage. Daisy dies a little bit sooner, so you have a little bit less of a front line. I mean, it's a necessary nerf, right? Daisy was just way too strong. The fact that you get this like free unit on the board, it's not free because you have to run Lysandra to get it, but the fact that you have this extra unit on the board that's practically like force of nature, you know, in that you have one extra unit. It's really strong, and anything that makes that a little bit weaker is definitely relevant. So I'm not discounting it. I'm not saying that this isn't a nerf, but I think it's pretty minor compared to how much stronger everything else got. So yes, elementalists got weaker, and I think that what this is going to do for elementalists is it's going to make the non-ninja builds of elementalist even weaker. Currently, you can basically run elementalist in anything, right? Like, just, you know, pick any other trait. Doesn't matter if it shares anything in common with those elementalists, and it'll be fine. Elementalist ranger, elementalist glacial. I guess glacial actually makes sense because it has overlap with two elementalists. Elementalist demon, elementalist yordle. I don't fucking know. Like, any of those, it's like, well, you have Brand and you have Daisy, so you'll probably win some rounds, right? You have a good chance of winning just based on the power of elementalist. So with ninjas getting so much stronger and everything else like more or less staying the same, that can go with elementalist. I think that the gap between ninja elementalist and the other elementalist builds just gets bigger. I haven't discussed many items yet, but there is one really relevant item change for both sorcerers that I covered already and for elementalists, which is Morellonomicon. Morellonomicon got a buff. I'm really surprised at this one, and I'm trying to work through like why in a game design sense you would buff Morello when it's a core item on a lot of builds already. It's so good on Pike and Brand and Anivia and pretty much anyone. I think the reason is that there are a lot of strategies, and especially with Warmog's got buffed here also. So I think that the game needs an anti-healing tool that you'd want to make, you know? Like, it can't just be like, oh, healing is broken. Well, you can build grievous wounds. Well, the only ways to build grievous wounds are terrible, right? Like, you don't want that because you don't want to have to go that far out of your way to build grievous wounds. With Morellonomicon, you don't have to go out of your way at all. For those of you, excuse me, for those of you who haven't played with it, Morellonomicon applies grievous wounds for the rest of the round. Not just like for a few seconds, not just like while, you know, your brand ult is bouncing, like they just don't heal ever. It's so strong. And this buff, like, I think that this, again, going back to like elementalists and sorcerers, this really undoes any other nerfs that they might have taken. So I kind of question the, I mean, I don't want to say like, oh, you know, Riot has no idea what they're doing, but like, I'll just put it this way. I think that Morello is going to be one of the strongest items in the game with this change. Last thing I want to cover with this is let's go to back to Pike. I mentioned him in another context too before, but Pike is the 7th unit in Ninja Elementalist. That is neither ninja nor an elementalist. You play him both because he's really strong and because he gives you 3 assassin to turn on Akali and Zed's damage. Slight nerf here. Again, you still have your first ult exactly the same time as you did before. Not that big a change. But speaking of assassins, let's talk about those ninjas that we saw before. And you might be thinking, okay, well, with Brand taking a slight nerf, Daisy getting a reasonable nerf, am I better off going into Ninja Assassin now? Or just overall, say that you're an assassin player and you want to know, are assassins still going to be viable? Well, it really depends on one thing here. And this is something that we haven't played with this patch live, so all I can go by is the wording. Rengar, similar to in Summoner's Rift, Rengar is a really feast or famine champion that depends on his items. So the way that Rengar works is almost every unit in Teamfight Tactics scales off spell damage, even if it's a unit that you'd think of as an AD unit in League, like Kha'Zix, like Zed, they just scale off AD. Their spells still deal magic damage and thus scale off AP in Teamfight Tactics. Rengar is one of the exceptions. The way that Rengar works is that every time he leaps, he gives himself additional crit chance and additional attack speed. And apparently what this change does is that every time Rengar leaps, instead of getting a flat amount of attack speed, it compounds on itself. And eventually, if Rengar lives long enough in a fight, he's just going to be attacking faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. That seems really good, honestly. So I'm really excited to play around with that. I think that if you are someone that enjoys building assassins, that enjoys that style of, you know, going all in a little bit earlier than a traditional econ build, that just wants to crush people with a bunch of melee units, assassins are kind of pub stompy, I guess you could say. Like, against players who don't really understand positioning in econ, you can just knock people out of the game so fast with assassins. And so if I understand these changes to Rengar correctly, Rengar is going to be a really good target for building as a carry. I think that he already was maybe kind of an overlooked target as a carry because he scales harder on AD than almost any champion in teamfight tactics. Maybe DRAVEN would be the other one because of how his spell works. But because he gives himself innately in his kit more crit chance, Infinity Edge is an incredibly good item. So if you build Rengar right now with, or in 9.14 with rapid fire cannon, so that all of your shit is undodgeable, and you don't get as crowded by the fact that every one of your assassins is another melee unit, so they're not just like standing around trying to find an opening to attack someone. So with RFC and Infinity Edge, I think that those two core items, Rengar can just shred people. If I'm interpreting these patch changes correctly. Now, the question becomes, if you believe me in that Akali is as broken as I say she is, and you do want to go ninjas, are you better off going ninja elementalists or ninja assassins? Reasonable question. For me personally, I think that ninja elementalist just inherently gives you more ways to attack your opponent. What I mean is that your Akali jumps in their backline and goes back to front, working through their team, starting with their carries and then going through your tanks. While at the other end, your Brand and hopefully Anivia, if it's later in the game, they go the other direction. Actually, well, no, Anivia kind of starts with their backline also, but Brand works through your tanks by burning through your tanks with Morello and his massive AoE damage. Whereas if you go straight like ninja assassin, you're really only attacking from that from the former angle of going straight for their carries and working forward. The exception to this would be is if you do, instead of just using Akali as your one ninja, if you do have Kennen in there to be the damage dealer for your front line. I think that this is definitely going to be viable. I just don't know if it's optimal. I would say that it's like Ninja Elementalist is S tier, or in Magic the Gathering terms, I still think of like tier 1, tier 2 decks. So if Ninja Elementalist is like the tier 1, I think that Ninja Assassin is going to be tier 2. But it's like if I lose a game where the Ninja Assassin person gets first place, I'm not going to be shocked, you know? There are going to be games where I go Ninja Assassin and I'm pretty happy with it. The reason it's not quite as good is that it doesn't take advantage of Kennen's CC ability as much, because currently Anivia has no CC, right? And so what Kennen does there is he sticks with them and he gives this like field of a stun to give space for those other units to work. But on the other hand, what you're going to have the advantage of Ninja Assassin is you really take advantage of that crit damage, right? Because do you even have space to do 6 Assassin, 4 Ninja? So you would do 6 Assassin and 2 of them are Ninja, right? And then you add Shen Kennen. I think really the only way to do that would be with Spatula, right? So at level 7, you could make Kennen an assassin, but then what happens is that Shen's kind of all alone, right? Shen's probably going to get focused down and killed really fast. But with the buffs to Shen, that might actually work now, because if you give him a defensive item, he might survive long enough to get his spell off and then keep himself alive while their entire front line moves toward your Shen, and your now 5 assassins plus assassin cannon work through the back line. I do think that's going to be viable. I think it's really going to depend on just how good Rengar is. So that's the main difference between these two builds, right? Is stacking Rengar with AD items versus stacking Brander and Ivia with Morellonomicon and mana AP items. Okay, enough about ninjas. I know that I've been talking about ninjas and ninja elementalists a lot, but like, I'm blown away at Akali actually getting not just not nerfed, but improved on this patch. Okay, now for something totally different, completely different. Nobles. So I already mentioned that Lucian got an early buff. The other, even bigger change is everyone's favorite joke unit of Fiora. Commonly thought of as the worst unit in the game. This is a massive bug, massive buff. Now is one of the fastest attack speeds in the game. I think the fastest attack speed for a 1-star unit. I think sharing it with, I know that Kale, I think that Kale has an attack speed of either 1.0 or 1.1, and dealing more damage with the ability once you get Fiora to level 2, which is really, really needed. Fiora is still as squishy as ever, but this is going to sound ridiculous, but I promise it has a good reason. I think Fiora was underrated in 9.13. I think that Fiora is not as bad as people said that she was. And the reason for that is that when you play Fiora, you're not just running Fiora out there, right? You're not just like throwing 2 or 3-star Fiora out there with no synergies and expecting her to carry for you. The reason that you run Fiora is to get Noble buff. And early on, when you have 3, 4, 5 units, Noble buff is, as Scara said, worth between half a unit and a full unit. So you're not just getting Fiora, you are getting Fiora plus Noble buff on one of your units. So with Fiora being a legitimate DPS frontliner now, and Lucian getting a big buff here, I think that Noble opening is going to be the best opening for winning early rounds. Pirates might be better overall for econ, but when you go into one of these two, you're going to be really, really happy with it. Clarifying though, Noble buff is still trash late game. Noble 6 is a trap. Don't do Noble 6. Noble 6 is, it's like, okay, I'm just going to say how I really feel here. Noble 6 is the worst late game synergy in the game, either that or Knight. People keep going for Noble 6. It's fucking terrible. It is Fisher-Price, my first late game synergy. It does nothing. It gives you armor and health on hit, right? Okay, so tell me what happens when you have armor and health on hit against Aurelian Soul or Brand with Morellonomicon. What happens? Your armor is useless and you don't get any health on hit. You do nothing. Your only good unit late game is Kale, and every composition wants Kale. Oh, my Noble team is so good because I have 2-star Kale. Yeah, no shit. It's one of the best units in the game, 2-star Kale. Like, anyone could do that. Like, throw 2-star Kale in as an extra no synergy unit in sorcerers or protect the DRAVEN or assassins. Like, anything, and it's good. Noble buff is trash at 6. I actively avoid going for the units that would get me Noble 6 because you have no damage, you have no defense against magic, you've basically no CC. Leona can only hit 1 unit at a time. Don't fucking do it. But that's made up for, okay, that part's over, but that's made up for by the fact that Noble is so monstrously good early game. There's a reason that in the video about transitions, it was about transitioning from Noble, which is so incredibly good, and now Noble early is even better. I think that if you start out Noble and you transition and you use that massive win streak to transition to a really good mid-late game build, you're going to win a lot of games at 100 HP because it's that strong. I don't know what else to say about Noble. It's getting even better. So like, yeah, I'm so excited to start out opening Noble. The last synergy that I want to go over is Wild, which got a very slight buff here. So from 7% per stack to 8% per stack, and that might seem whatever. It makes early game very slightly better because Nidalee usually does stack up max. So instead of at max stacks 35%, you're now at 40% max stacks. However, Nidalee also took a really big nerf this patch that was not aimed directly at her, but at Rapid Fire Cannon. So Rapid Fire Cannon now updates in response to range change RIP RFC Nidalee. I'm really sad about this one. I think they could have left that in there, to be honest. Like, RFC Nidalee was really, really cool. Like, you just stand in the back line and just like meow, 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 just pawing at people from the entire map away while healing and like critting with eye edge or like sword breaking people or something like that. However, this was unfortunately necessary because if RFC worked like it did on live and you got like early 3-star RFC Elise and then you built another attack speed item on her, yeah, that would be pretty gross because you're just like stealing everyone's mana forever and then can hide the unit in a corner and you have spiders to tank for you, 4 spiders to tank for you. So I understand why they did that, but taking away that RFC interaction from Nidalee really does hurt Wild early. What this does though is maybe it makes like Wild 4 a little bit better, because say that you have Wild 4 and you're granting that to all of your units and like you have Vayne or whatever, and you know the difference between 35 and 40% attack speed on a unit like that when attack speed is so crucial in this game, that is, you know, it is relevant. It's not huge though. The other change to Wild is the Rengar one. So, you know, Rengar is probably still best in 6 Assassin because you really want to, because he gives himself crit, so you want to take advantage of that crit bonus more than you want to take advantage of the Wild bonus. But I could definitely see going Wild Assassin as a really viable transition now. So you start out with Nidalee, Warwick, Kha'Zix, and then you add Rengar and say Ahri as your 4th Wild, and from there you transition into Assassins. And probably you can't keep 4 Wilds with 6 Assassin, but you know, 2 Wilds keeping like an early Nidalee or Warwick that you get, you know, if you get like one of those to 3 stars, that's great with 6 Assassin, because Rengar is just going to be bouncing all over the place, one-shotting everyone. I think that'll be pretty viable. Again, that Assassin build, I would call it like a tier 2 or like a tier, I guess, in video game terms. Still going to be really strong. Okay, we're almost done. We're almost done. That was all of the like synergies I want to talk about. I'm gonna go through items, and then I am gonna do the whole like scrolling through the whole thing and just talk about any random champions that I missed. Oh shit! No! There's one more build. There's one more build that I totally missed. This isn't a synergy, but wait, it is a synergy. The synergy that I want to talk about, the origin and class synergy that I want to talk about, is DRAVEN. So DRAVEN has an origin of DRAVEN and a class of DRAVEN, and the team comp is called DRAVEN. And so what you build is DRAVEN, and then you get DRAVEN. And the team comp that you want that isn't DRAVEN is anyone that is around DRAVEN. I think the composition that took by far the biggest nerf in 9.14 is the DRAVEN composition. And I'm not just joking about like everything's DRAVEN, but what this team composition is DRAVEN and broken 4-cost tanks, right? So you surround DRAVEN. Who do you put around him? Sejuani, Cho'Gath, Gnar. Well, what happens to those? Gnar nerfed Sejuani, huge nerf, cut the like 1-star stun by 50%. But then when you get her to 2 stars, it's almost the same. Cho'Gath, again, nerf, not a massive one, but you also have to remember that even if these don't look like huge nerfs, everything is relative. And this is a buff patch, right? So everything got buffed. So if everything gets buffed, except for DRAVEN, which everything around DRAVEN gets like nerfed a little bit, that's huge. Because relatively, DRAVEN gets so much worse. So attack speed, like everything about DRAVEN is attack speed. This is taking away half of a bow from DRAVEN. That's huge. I think that this is the first one that really, really, really changes the prioritization of what builds I don't want to go. I don't think that no synergy protect the DRAVEN is going to be as viable a build anymore. I think it'll happen occasionally, and you can certainly win some games based on it, but I don't think that style of DRAVEN build will be that good. However, blademaster actually gets good, a lot better here, because while DRAVEN got nerfed, it used to be that to get blademaster, you needed DRAVEN, who is amazing, and then absolute bottom of the barrel trash units around him. So you needed like Fiora, Yasuo, Gangplank, Shen, right? Like Aatrox also, like just trash units. So who got buffed this patch? Fiora, Aatrox, Shen, Gangplank, and Yasuo. So DRAVEN got nerfed, yes, and that sucks for DRAVEN, sucks for people that like building Protect the DRAVEN, but literally all 5 other Blademasters got buffed. And here's another one. Let's go to items. So where is Spatula? What the fuck is Spatula's real name? I just noticed Spatula. Oh, yeah, it's just Spatula, right? So now doubles the stat power of its sister component. For example, Youmuu's Ghostblade grants 40 attack damage. What this means, so the Blademaster buff, Spatula, Blade of the Ruin King, it builds out of bow. What this means is that when you make someone into a Blademaster to turn on DRAVEN, and to do that, usually you're going to make an ADC into a Blademaster, they're going to get they're going to get 2 bows worth of attack speed out of that, in addition to going to Blademaster 3 or Blademaster 6. So here lies DRAVEN. DRAVEN is dead. Long live DRAVEN. Because Blademaster is a real build now. I'm not sure that it's on the tier of sorcerers, ninja elementalists, or that kind of thing, but I think that Blademaster is good. Blademaster is probably on the tier of assassins, demons, gunslingers, like good builds. Honestly, okay, I shouldn't say that fast about gunslingers and demons, because we don't really know where those are going to land in the metagame, but it seems to me like they're going to be really good. And with 5 Blademasters getting buffed and the item that makes something into a Blademaster getting buffed, Blademasters are real now. Anyway, so that's that. Let's go actually through the items now. So we went over Spatula, we went over that. Cursed Blade. So Cursed Blade is a gunslinger item. So for those of you who didn't see PBE, there's a new icon for getting hit by Cursed Blade and taking a 1-star unit to 0 stars. And they lose a lot of stats when they do that. The biggest change from this based on live, fixed a bug. Yeah, the item didn't work. This is practically a new item to the game now, because it just like, you actively avoided Cursed Blade because it made their units better. Like it would heal them, you know? And it's actually a really good item now. On Gunslinger, it might actually, before they nerfed Gunslinger to only hitting 2 targets instead of all, Cursed Blade was actually overpowered. Frozen Heart, this item is situational, but it's a good assassin item. GA, so only 2 seconds revive delay. I guess that's a buff, and obviously restoring more health. This was an item that I liked doing on Yasuo, because I would put him, obviously you have to put him separate from all your units, and he's a frontline unit. So what would happen is that he would get his spells off, they kill him first, all my guys DPS, then he comes back. It's still going to be situational, but I think that GA has situations where you build it now. Ginsu's. Huge buff to early noble compositions because you have Vayne in them, and in order to win these, what you do is you put a Ginsu's or 2 Ginsu's, if you're a lucky piece of shit, on Vayne, and then you use that to carry you through early and mid game pretty much for free while you are econing. Like, you don't need to do shit if you have noble buff Ginsu's Vayne, right? Like, you don't need to do anything, you just win everything. And so I think this is a reversion of how Ginsu's used to be when people thought it was like a god tier item. I think it was overrated then because it does kind of fall off later game, but this is a huge buff. One build I haven't mentioned at all is Ranger, just because it's not a build I do, honestly. It's like, I like playing Econ, and to do Ranger you have to reroll for like Vayne 3. But you know what, let's back up. Let's go over Ranger real quick. Real quick. Tier 1, Vayne. Vayne gets more attack speed. Ranger is better now. Cool, we good. Ashe didn't get any changes. However, I will say, if you think that Glacial Ranger is broken good, you're wrong. You haven't been playing any better builds. It's just another build. It's fine. It's fine. It's a fine build. It gets better here. Anyway, moving on. Hextech Gunblade. I'm really bummed about this one. I have a quick clip on my channel where I put Ionic Hextech on Swain, and he just didn't lose any health because everyone would cast spells and he had Imperial buff, so it would deal 400 to them, and then he would heal for a third of that. Not healing off items. I mean, I thought it was kind of cool, but maybe Shyvana with Magic Community Thornmail Hextech, like, pretty close to unkillable. I still, probably necessary to do that. Hextech's still a really good Akali item. This goes back to our theme of Akali somehow managing to dodge every single nerf this patch. Ionic. A lot of people have been messing around with Ionic on PvE. A lot of people. There's no real way to take super hard advantage of Ionic because it doesn't scale off Sorcerer. However, as I mentioned, it does scale off of Imperial. So I think that the situations, there's 2 situations where you can do Ionic. First, as a specific counter to squishy teams with that are abusing Shojin or double Shojin. So if someone is sliding around the map with like double pike, if someone is doing actually, I'm not sure if it would be good against like Shojin Lulu, because then she just ults herself and who gives a shit. But anyway, against those squishy teams that are just like firing off tons of spells, probably Sorcerer, Ionic Spark is going to be good. The other situation is if you're doing an Imperial build, which is probably like pretty good. I think that you stick Ionic on one of your units, on one of your Imperials when you have... This is only for Imperial 4, by the way. So when you have Imperial 4, I think that Ionic on Swain is still going to be really good because you deal 400 true damage for every spell, and Swain is probably, hopefully, going to survive for a while. The downside to this is that it relies on having 2-star Swain, and 2-star Swain is fucking amazing anyway, so if you have 4 Imperial 2-star Swain, it probably doesn't really matter what items you build. Locket. So this is interesting. So it's, instead of shielding around a hex, it shields in a line. I tried on PvE like a pirate build where I was like, well, maybe Locket will get me through a weaker early game because I'll distribute 1500 HP around, which is like, it's like a brawler buff, right? It's pretty good. Sorry. Turns out that the disadvantage of like having all those ranged units next to your melees is still not worth it. I'll group Locket and Zeeks here and say that these are now going to be good assassin items, because assassins, you always make them in a line, right? So that there's no way that they don't jump, and there's no way that their team doesn't come toward your melee guy. So if you make all of your assassins in a line and the middle guy has like Locket Zeeks, then you're distributing a lot of stats through your team. And you know, if Locket on a non-carry assassin means that your Rengar or your Akali gets off you know, 2 or 3 more spells, it's probably going to swing the fight for you. So those items seem pretty good. I'm not going to say that they're like broken or core or anything, but they seem like they'll be pretty good assassin items. Ludens. Ludens actually works now. So the way that it was before was, I can't believe that someone even figured this out, how it works, was instead of dealing 200 base damage, it was dealing base damage equal to the AP, which is bizarre. But anyway, that's why like Akali was one-shotting people with that, because you get like a shitload of AP and then it scales exponentially. But anyway, so now it's just 200 primary target and splash damage. I see this as a really good early game item on Lucian. And the reason for that is Lucian, he's going to be casting a lot of spells. His spell base damage was buffed already, and unlike in League, which is both base damage and AP ratios, more base damage means scales harder off of AP in this game. So giving Lucian mana to get his first spell off and AP is good, and then every single spell he casts is going to deal an extra like 200 to 600 additional damage. I think that's crazy good. Later game it'll fall off because it'll still just do that that flat 200, but yeah, I think that later game you'll just move it onto a unit that just wants the stats, right? That just wants the mana and the AP, so you might give it to Lulu. On 9.13, I don't know if they changed this, I don't see any change. Lulu does proc Ludens. Even though her knockup doesn't deal any damage, it still procs that. So really good Lucian or Lulu early game item. I expect to be building this a lot just to like win streak early in the game, or just, you know, keep my HP up by winning. Nolanamcon, we covered this. Item is insane, it gets even better. Super necessary against teams that are abusing Revolver or Warmogs or shit like that. We covered that. Recurve bow, attack speed. This is going back to 20%. So now that caster compositions are so dominant in 9.13, this is the real thing that maybe you could make the case that casters like elementalists or sorcerers will not be as good in 9.14. This is a huge buff to early gunslingers, and as well to anything else that triggers off of attack speed. I'm thinking demons, because demons, almost all of them attack really slow. So if you get them to attack faster with some bows, like you throw some bows on Elise, she's going to steal people's mana a lot faster. Aatrox, Varus especially, huge buff to any of those. Redemption item is useful now. I can see situations where I'll put that on a frontline tank that wants mana. I see this as like a Sejuani item, because she's certainly going to get to 25%, but she's pretty tanky. So the heal might actually save her now. Also, they fixed the bug where it was like sometimes randomly dealing damage. Runons, it was useless before. Now it doesn't deal hardly any damage, but it applies on hit effects. This is something that if you have the parts, it's not like core, but if you have the parts for it, you'll put it on your gunslinger who is applying CC. I see this as like, if you don't want this and RFC, because then you don't have as many on hit effects, but if you have like Cursed Blade, Red Buff, Runons, for example, or you have substitute one of those with like Hush or with Swordbreaker, it's good. Seraph's just a bug fix. Static Shiv, basically this is what this is on PBE Static Shiv. There were some really funny videos of Static Shiv being completely broken with gunslingers. I don't think that gunslingers really want to take advantage of Static Shiv anymore. I could be wrong. but I don't think that Static Shiv is going to be good on anyone anymore. My initial recommendation is just don't build Static Shiv. Thornmail item is good now. That's kind of the theme of this patch, is everything is better. Thornmail has a really cool interaction with Braum now. Because of the way that it redirects all physical damage, Braum throws up his shield and he's redirecting like 90% of damage. And so just like everyone's trying to shoot Braum and it redirects the entire physical damage back to them. So this is going to be really, really cool in glacial compositions. In addition to, there were some buffs on Braum that I didn't cover. It makes those a lot better. Going to be really, really fun. Lead to some really funny Reddit videos of a ranger or a gunslinger team against a 3-star Braum just killing themselves. That'll be hilarious. Warmogs. This will be an incredible item on shapeshifters because of shapeshifters got a buff, a buff fix, I guess you could call it, where they got a nerf, but they got a bigger buff where it properly scales their HP. So if you put Warmogs on Gnar now or on Swain when you have shapeshifter buff, it's going to be crazy. So going back to demons, something that I could see is, say that you have that 6 demon Gnar composition, and let's throw on Swain, let's give him Warmogs, Hextech, and Hat. Okay, so then he's dealing a shitload of damage. He's scaling his own health restore based on the AP that he has. He's stealing people's mana. He is going to be unkillable unless you have Grievous Wounds. However, what all these buffs to healing items do is just make either Morello's, which also got a buff, or red buff mandatory. I would say that if you are on gunslingers and one of your gunslingers does not have red buff, you're doing it wrong. You need to apply red buff to units that heal because someone is going to be trying to abuse healing. If you have red buff on their Swain, you win the battle for free. If you do not have red buff on their 2-star Swain, you will get obliterated. So that's how that's going to work this time. Zeke's, we covered that. It's good on assassins. And I guess you can still put that on rangers, like really, really late game rangers. You can have that. And I say only really, really late game because of the bizarre positioning that it'll make you do. We have to spread them 5 across. So as soon as you're like level 7, 8, 9, let's say level 7, where you can spread 5 rangers and give them attack speed, or you know what? No, I take that back, because you can make it where like you're, instead of building corner, you're building middle, like positioning middle, and then you have your like 4 rangers in the middle, and then they're surrounded by melee units. Zeke's will be really good for that. So Zeke's, it'll be more concentrated now, where you can choose to only basically give it to 4 rangers and 1 other units. Zeke's so good on rangers, good on assassins. Almost done. This has been going on a while. Let's go through here and ranked pre-made. Thank God. There was gonna be some weird like collusion where people queue up, and it's not exactly like, oh, I'll sell this unit, I'll go easy on you, because you can't really do that. What you would do is just coordinate not overlapping on builds, because it really matters to not overlap on builds. Level breakpoints, this makes econing very slightly better, but very, very slightly. Ability targeting, huge buff to Lulu and Kale, because they won't be just targeting your 1-star Vigar anymore. They're going to be targeting your frontline unit because they're actually taking damage. So I said that Lulu didn't get nerfed. It's not just that she didn't get nerfed. The ability targeting, this is going to make sure that she basically always either ults your phantomed unit or always buffs your frontline unit. So say that you have a Kassadin on the front line and you have Seraphs on Lulu, right? So Lulu only needs like a couple seconds before she ults. Kassadin can survive with the shield for a couple seconds, knock up around Kassadin, shield someone else. It's going to be ridiculous. Lulu huge buff from that. We went over that, we went over that, we went over that. Anything relevant here? There's going to be some funny builds with Warwick, not a huge thing though. These are AI changes. I'll have to see it in practice. I don't trust that they'll actually work. Braum is good now, however, you still only want him in either glacial compositions, or if you are wrong in building nobles and not listening to me, and you build nobles, then I guess you'll throw him in with Leona. But in glacial, he'll actually be good now. Went over that, went over that. This makes early brawlers good, but you still replace Rek'Sai with Cho'Gath. Went over that, went over that. This makes another part of why pirates and blademasters are good now. Bug fix, ninjas better, went over that. Poppy. Here's something I can actually talk about. So Poppy is going to be an individually good unit now. And I say an individually good unit because she has incredible base stats with 40 armor. That's a lot of armor. And her ult is now going to throw out like multiple knockups, which will be really, really strong. The main issue with Poppy is where the fuck you play her, because knights are pretty much trash. You don't have any way to prevent against spell damage, and Yordles are trash because they are hard countered both by spell damage and by rapid fire cannon, which rapid fire cannon got better because bows are even better, so everyone's going to have rapid fire cannon. I could see Poppy still getting some use as a second knight next to Sejuani. I could see building Poppy as a counter to specifically what other people are doing. Say that some people have gotten eliminated and the top people in your game are all doing like Ranger, Demon, Elementalists, these on-hit builds rather than spell-based builds. I could see Yordles very specifically being decent, but she'll be situational now rather than useless. We went over Rengar. Shapeshifters are really good now. This is a buff to the non-6 sorcerer soul build. I mean, everyone's done that build. It's still good. It gets a little bit better now. Volibear, yeah, so this is cool. So I don't think that Volibear is going to be like a top tier one, but this is another like Reddit video kind of thing, and it's like a streamer thing. Like streamers have already been like having fun with Demon Bear. I mean, it's really cool. It's a really cool build. This is going to lead to a lot of really fun experimentation with different on-hit items for Volibear, turning him into different classes, not just making him a demon, but like RFC, make him a blademaster, you know, because blademasters are good now. RFC, give him Shrink Ray, you know, like all these different really cool on-hit items to do. And so what they're trying to do here is just buff Volibear to where he is a legitimate threat as a carry. And I think that this is a buff to creativity, right? Because to build Volibear, you really have to do something weird. You can't just like throw him in there by himself. You really have to think about like how I want to position in this unusual way where with RFC he has a range of 2 hexes, what on-hit items I want him to do, how I get this guy to survive. The mana cost thing is huge because currently on live all he does is go like this to ult and immediately die during it. So really cool, really, really fun buff here. Super happy they're doing this. I think it's just going to make Teamfight Tactics more fun to have this Volibear buff in there. We did that, we did that. All tier 4s got nerfed except for Leona. Leona is going to be more legit next to Braum in Glacials now, so small buff to Glacial comps. Anivia, I no longer cancels when Anivia dies. I didn't realize it did that anyway. So get another buff to Elementalists. Big buff to Misfortune's Logic here. Maybe. So the fact that it does current attack target rather than like souls targeting, where he like goes bleh, and attacks a massive clump of units, they're definitely going to be times where she ults the one assassin, you know. Super high variance. unit, I think that if you use her well, if you position your units so that they are on the same side of the board as your opponent, so they meet immediately, so no assassins can get to Misfortune, Misfortune doesn't move, she can immediately, like with some mana items, just ult right there, right through that tank that she was targeting. I'm gonna deal massive damage. Misfortune is still a really good endgame gunslinger unit. Yasuo, I mentioned this before, I already thought that Yasuo was a really strong unit. I've done a lot of compositions where I have Yasuo with no synergies, other than Exile, of course. No synergies for Yasuo. So not only is this a buff to Blademaster, like I mentioned, you can already do like Yasuo, if you econ really hard like I always do, you can put him as like a pseudo frontliner separate from your other frontline to distract them. And the fact that he has more CC now is pretty relevant. The damage, like, who cares about like a buff to 3-star Yasuo, right? Like, that's gonna happen 1 out of every 1,000 games, but it'll be great when it does. So minor buff there, but that is the theme of this patch, is like everything gets buffed. Okay, whew. We're almost done, we're almost done. I promise we're almost done. So what is the general theme of this patch where everything got buffed? There's a lot of different viable buffs, viable builds you can do. Again, Ninja Elementalists, but also pirates into gunslingers, pirates into sorcerers. Please play around with demons. There are going to be builds there. Please play around with Volibear. There are going to be some really fun builds there. Assassins are still pretty good. Noble build, Noble opening is still insane. Healing, both item healing and countering healing, is going to be really important in 9.14. My main takeaway from this patch, going into ranked, which should launch tomorrow, I think it'll launch tomorrow, is build Akali. So this is a 7-hour video or whatever, just telling you, build Akali. Okay. Thanks for watching, everyone. Follow me on Twitch. I'm not doing Twitch streaming today because of the strike against Amazon, and I'm not a scab, so I'll be doing some streaming here on YouTube, on Twitch after today. Please don't go on there today, but after today, go to twitch.tv/kingcobweb, same username as on my YouTube channel. You can also follow me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is killgoldfish, which is also my in-game name. I was blown away by the response to my video about transitions. I posted it to the competitive TFT subreddit, and a Rioter saw that. So huge shout out to Riot Maple. Really thank you. I mean, meant so much to me that you liked the video, that you showed it to other people. Yeah, I hope that everyone has fun with ranked. Keep experimenting. All the stuff that I said about like what builds are going to be good. Think of it as like a starting point and like what to expect in ranked. Don't ever let it hamper your creativity. If you think I'm wrong about something and you think that nobles actually are broken, if you think that Volibear isn't just fun, but like Volibear is the thing to do, please, for the love of God, prove me wrong. Do wild, crazy builds. With Spatula now doubling the item, there are going to be so many outrageous different builds that no one has thought of. So keep an open mind, stay creative out there, try different random shit. They're no teammates, right? You're not going to let down your teammates by doing random builds. So try out goofy shit. If the goofy shit doesn't work, oh well, I got 8th. Let's try again. Okay. Yeah. Try different shit. Have fun out there. Thanks again. Whew, this took a long time. Bye.